Alright, so we need to talk about what happened last night. Uh, I'm... The Rockets are kind of a joke, honestly. We're gonna talk about their whole small ball thing and Mike D'Antoni and all of that jazz. So, first of all, I don't think Russell Westbrook is very comfortable in this environment at all because he can't be himself. He's forced to just score in the paint, and Russell Westbrook likes taking mid-range jumpers and fades and all that. And Mike D'Antoni doesn't like running real offense. He just likes baiting you into threes, essentially. Um, which is kind of stupid because that's not a real offense. Russell Westbrook isn't able to just be himself. And then he gets criticized for playing the way he's currently playing. That's because he doesn't have a choice but to play the way he's currently playing. He wasn't exactly given much freedom by Mike D'Antoni because, again, Mike D'Antoni's offense isn't a real offense. He's obsessed with all these... He and Daryl Morey both are obsessed with all of these analytics and stats and all this garbage. And, like, analytics are all well and good, but you have to run an offense that isn't predictable. Like, when you watch the Rockets play, it actually looks like 2K, and that's not a compliment. They look like, you know, bots just roaming around in predictable patterns. You know, that's exactly what it is, fam. Like, you can't tell me that their offense isn't incredibly predictable, because it is. And that's one of their biggest issues. Everyone knows that on every play, James Harden or Russell Westbrook are going to carry the ball up the court. Most of the time, it's going to be James Harden. And then if James Harden doesn't just get a wide open place to the lane or, you know, step back for three, then he's going to kick it out to someone who is a open shooter. Which, no. Like, the amount of times I see him get right under the basket and then kick it out to someone, it makes me crazy. Like, if the Rockets would just play fundamental basketball for one game, things would be so much better for them. Like, they take more 3-point attempts than 2-point attempts. You know how ridiculous that is? Like, I know the way the NBA is now with the 3, but, you know, analytics be damned. Right under the basket is still, and always will be, the most efficient shot in basketball. And by not using the mid-range at all, they know you're only going to do two things. So that makes it pretty easy to come up with a defensive scheme for the Rockets, and that's not even addressing the fact that they don't have a center. We're just going to politely, for now at least, ignore the fact that they have absolutely no center. Which, defensively, that's, like, I knew when they were doing it that it was the dumbest thing I had ever heard. I was like, you know, small ball and stuff, that's great, but you can't not have a center. Because what I knew was going to happen from them not actually having a center has happened exactly. They get horrendously out-rebounded by teams like the Lakers. And I mean, like, really badly. I think they got out-rebounded by almost 30 in that last game. They had, like, I think it was, they had 2 offensive rebounds the entire game. It's almost, you know why that is? It's because they don't have a center. It's because they don't have a center. If they would just take when they had Clint Capella, you had to respect them because you couldn't just double Harden the way that the Lakers are doubling Harden now. Because if you did that, then you would be leaving Capella open for a dunk, potentially. Or Harden could kick it out to some shooters. But now, the Rockets have exactly two things they do, And if your offense wasn't this stupid, predictable meme that it is, then maybe things would be better for you. Like, take some mid-range jumpers, for crying out loud. It's part of the game. Like, I know they're good on defense now, and they've tried to make up for the complete lack of rebounding presence whatsoever by forcing turnovers and garbage. But it's just so infuriating to watch. Not only will you never win a championship this way in a million years, but you're also looking at the fact that it's just not even an entertaining product. Like, anyone who finds watching the Rockets fun wouldn't know good basketball if it hit them in the face. Like, it's not fun. They're the most boring team to watch in basketball. I don't care if they hit 53s in a game. It's not fun because I know what they're going to do every single time they run down the court. And I know that in all likelihood, they're only going to win because they shot 90 gazillion three-point attempts. Like, and no one ever talks about that. Like, not only that, but then when something doesn't work out for them, they cry and they whine for foul calls. And listen, James Harden, he manipulates the way the rules work. And I like how this has just kind of become an anti-Rockets rant, but nonetheless. He manipulates the way that the rules work. Listen, if you are the one who initiates contact, it should not be a foul on the defender. Like, that's BS, He'll be running into the paint, and he will cause the contact. He will hook his arm under the defender. The defender won't hook his arm. He'll hook his own arm. And then the referees are like, that's a foul, it's foul. It's not. It's not a foul. Because he himself initiated contact. The defender didn't do anything wrong. He gets like 25 free throws a game, which is ridiculous because sometimes entire teams don't get 25 free throws a game. And it's just pathetic. Like, you can't win basketball this way. This is not winning basketball with the analytical garbage. And then there's Mike D'Antoni, who refuses to make any sort of adjustment because he's like, oh, we'll just hit 1,000,000 threes the next game. Well, no, you won't, and you haven't because the Lakers are slowing down the pace of the game. And you've got people who aren't centers running at centers. You are playing... This isn't even small ball. This is tiny ball. That's what this is. This is tiny ball. Shout out to Dom2K for creating that term.
Chris Clemens.
And that was odd. And then it's just all these alternative offenses, they never work. I remember a time before Mike D'Antoni when the Rockets had an actual offense, and they were a much better team when they had said actual offense, because James Harden had a really mean mid-range pull-up game, and he would do things in the post. And Mike D'Antoni is like, a straight-up post play is the most inefficient play in basketball. Well, no, Mike D'Antoni, actually, it's one of the most fundamentally sound plays in basketball. That's why that for a very long time, people used to think the only way you could win was with a star center. And to be honest, with this small ball thing, having a star center is probably still the way to go. Because of you can have him do stuff in the post and then kick it out to a wide open man because everyone's focusing on him in the paint. Which, that irritates me, but if you're gonna do it, you know, do it correctly, do it fundamentally. Don't try and force this new offense that won't work. I understand kind of how it works defensively, but it doesn't work good enough. You see the score in this game. It's because I have no idea what to do with this god-awful roster. I have no clue. Like, I just don't know what to do. And I can't imagine that the people on this team know what to do. A huge problem is when when James Harden doesn't have the ball, none of the other Rockets know what to do, even remotely. They don't have the slightest clue. They just stand around. James Harden, you could see him all game last night, had to keep yelling at them to try and get in the middle of the floor so he could pass it to them. Anyway, essentially speaking, I am completely blaming Mike D'Antoni, and I'm blaming Daryl Morey for enabling Mike D'Antoni's dumb self. I don't think Mike D'Antoni even deserves... I'm going to say it. I don't think Mike D'Antoni should be hired as a coach ever again. I think the Rockets should fire him and he should be cast out of basketball. I don't care if he's won Coach of the Year awards. I don't care if he's done this or that. I don't care what the Rockets' winning percentage is. You will never win a championship. No team will ever win a championship with Mike D'Antoni as their head coach because he's too obsessed with these alternative offenses. He's not a real coach. He lets the numbers tell him what to do. And I'm sorry, but you can't win basketball with math. You can't do that. You're not playing basketball. You're trying to mathematically win the game, and you can't it doesn't work. Advanced analytics are all fine and good, but you will not win a championship with just good analytically sound basketball. You need fundamentally sound basketball. Mike D'Antoni, he's not a championship coach. He hasn't been a championship coach. He will never be a championship coach. Daryl Morey is a great GM, but he's been catering to D'Antoni this entire time, which is kind of an issue. I'm sure if they made D'Antoni go, okay. Who would the Rockets replace with their head coach if they let D'Antoni go, for example? Well, they could take Ty Lue, but he's going to Philadelphia from the looks of things. They could take, there's a lot of good spots. They could take Nate McMillan. He, I think, would be actually a really good coaching choice for this Rockets team. They could take Nate McMillan. I know Billy Donovan Billy Donovan wouldn't be that bad. You're telling me Billy Donovan can't coach this team, Billy Donovan would find a way to make it work. And you know what? He would get at center. Alright? He wouldn't do this weird tiny ball meme. He would play Tyson Chandler. You know, and if they played Tyson Chandler, I guarantee you their success would go a lot up. They could try Sam Cassell, who's very qualified. I can't think of any coaches after that should actually get a job. Kenny Atkinson. They could get Kenny Atkinson. That would be a good choice for them. Really, any good coach that has a nice resume who isn't named Mike D'Antoni would be a better coach for the Houston Rockets. That's just the way I see it. If they were shooting jumpers and they had an actual offense that wasn't predictable as all hell, and they weren't the most boring team in basketball, maybe they could do something.